Today we're going to be doing a brake job on a 2017 Chevrolet Silverado 1500. So let's get to it. First we're going to start with tire on the ground. So the next step is we're going to break all these lug nuts loose. We're using a 22 millimeter socket. We're not taking these all the way out. Alright, now we'll get it jacked up and get a jack stand under. Okay, so we'll get better at this in the future. But for now, you just gotta bear with me. This is the first few videos and it takes a little bit to figure this stuff out. So, what I was gonna do was show you where I put the jack on these things. I don't know if you can really see, but there's like a double layer of metal on that frame and a nice flat spot. So that's where we're gonna stick the jack. So if you're not working on a 2017 Chevy Silverado 1500, you might want to consult the owner's manual and see where the recommended jacking points are, but this is going to work for us. That was a little quicker than I wanted it to be. So the jack stand is supporting the full weight of the vehicle, but I do like leaving the jack underneath there and just barely touching, just to have a little, you know, added safety. Okay, so before we go any further, we're gonna look at the reservoir here. You got a minimum and a maximum fluid level. A lot of oil change places and a lot of people in general will top this off. As your brake pads wear out, this fluid level will drop. So with this being pretty close to the max, I'm gonna go ahead and try and suck a little bit of this fluid out of here with a syringe, just so when I start collapsing those pistons and the calipers, this doesn't overflow. All right, got y'all set up. So if you do ever have to replace any fluid or add any fluid, the fluid you need is usually on the cap. This vehicle requires .3 if you need to add any. Well, I did just found a clean jar. I don't want to dump this brake fluid into my clean brake fluid and contaminate it possibly, so we're gonna just put it in something where we can dump it back in here if we need to. You could do this with a piece of vinyl tubing. This just seemed like the cleanest and easiest option, and I had a syringe laying around, so that's what we're using. All right, so we got that down to the minimum level. That should be good for what we need to do. We're gonna set this out of the way where it won't get dumped over in our dang engine compartment. All right, so we're back here at the wheel. I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well, but to check your brake pads when you do a tire rotation or something, look through that little window. You can see your rotor, obviously the brown part, and then the brake pad, and then the backing plate on the brake pad. So these still have a little life left, but the back ones are in worse shape, and I'm going to change them all, as I said, front and back. So we'll start pulling her apart and see what it looks like. So leverage is your friend getting these things loose sometimes. We're going to leave those in for now. This is where a big sequence comes in. And we're going to just slightly squeeze those pistons in, just to give us a little room to make it a little easier to disassemble this stuff. And you want to prop that somewhere where it's not going to fall and be hanging by your hose. These are actually in really good shape. That's the little squealer or chirper or, I don't know, indicator of some sort. And we're still plenty of distance away from there, but like I said, we're going to go ahead and change these out since we're changing the back ones anyway. When you buy brake pads, make sure they come with the little sliders that go in your caliper brackets. You definitely want to change these out because they will get a little war spot and cause those brake pads to kind of lock up in odd angles or odd places and cause damage to your rotor. Once you get them where you're happy with it, pop down on there. These are the little springs that kind of help force your brake pads apart. So one thing I like to do, and I don't even know if it's necessary, is an old brake pads. I usually try to put this in the same spot. So I'll grab the pair of brake pads that everything is the same as what it come off of. Now before you can put this caliper back on, these have to be squeezed in so you'll have clearance over this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the old brake pad and this big monster C-clip. Now you could get away with one of these, a 6-incher would work just fine. With the dual piston, we'll squeeze this side a little and then swap it over. Just try to go easy with it. If you're having to really bear down on the C-clamp or whatever you're using to squeeze these in, you're going to end up having a problem with this caliper. You might as well replace it. But this one slid in nice and easy, just like it's supposed to. Another thing to check is these gaskets or these seals on these pistons. Make sure they're not torn, and they don't have holes in them, or they're cracked up. If that's the case, you'll want to replace that whole caliper assembly. When you're putting this together, you'll have to squeeze these in, give you a little room, and then it'll sit right where it needs to go. So just realize we forgot a tool. We're going to need a wrench that'll fit that. It has 2 flat sides. And that might actually have plenty of flat sides. But we're going to try and tighten it up first to see what happens. That one worked. Alright, they both work. If you're trying to tighten these and this starts spinning though, you might have to grind your wrench down a little thinner, but you can put a wrench on this inside. So that about does it for this front end. We'll get the tire back on and get it back down and go to the other side. Okay, so before I button this up, I wanted to give you a few things to look at. So when you're looking at your rotors, you want to make sure there's no heat cracks in there or deep gouges. If you got any of that going on, you're going to want to replace your rotor. You might be able to get it cut, but if it comes down to that, man, just buy a new one. You got about a 1 in 10 shot that they'll cut it anyway. So yeah, that's This one looks fine. I'm fine with it. We're gonna run it and see. Shouldn't be any problem. Okay, so while we're getting this back together, this video obviously isn't for the experts out there. This video is more geared towards somebody who's just looking to take on a little of their own vehicle maintenance. And this procedure works for pretty much all disc brakes. They're gonna be similar. Wrench sizes might change, sockets might change, whatever. The basic procedure is going to be the same, whether it's Ford, Chevy, Dodge, it don't matter. I was fortunate growing up. I had a dad that was mechanically inclined and a damn good mechanic who was able to teach me, my brother, a lot of our friends how to work on our own stuff. Sure helped us out and still helping me out today. We didn't have YouTube then, and that's one reason I started making videos is, you know, if I could do something to just help one of y'all out there get started on your own project, it makes it all worth it to me. When you're tightening your lug nuts, you want to offset. This kind of helps keep things centered. Actually, when you're torquing anything down, it's worth just doing some sort of pattern on there. So we're just going to put enough weight on there to keep it from spinning when we're tightening it. So if you're not confident in your abilities to tighten the lug stud down, definitely use a torque wrench. So if you do have access to air tools or battery power impact, you got these little plastic nuts. I still recommend using hand tools to get these on, because you will strip them out with an impact. Might not be the first couple of times you do it, but it'll happen eventually. So again, you know, we just barely snugged them all down. Now we'll go around and you kind of feel it click a couple of times or just get tight. There you go. They ain't going nowhere. Okay, just wanted to show y'all where our fluid level is now. You can already see it's moved halfway back up to the maximum there. That's just doing the front tube. The back won't raise it as far. It's just single piston calipers. But you could see where if that sucker was all the way full, you'd be pushing some stuff out. Okay, so moving on over here, pretty much the same as it was in the front. That's spinning, so I'm gonna have to find a wrench. See what the bottom one does. Yep, got me a wrench for that one. Okay, after 87 trips to the toolbox, 20 millimeter will fit this back up right there. And we're using just a 1/2 inch shallow socket for the bolt. We're gonna leave those bolts in the hole for just a second. All right, so the same as the front. We're going to compress this piston just a little bit. Make sure this backside isn't on a hose or something like that. So again, you don't want this falling and hanging from that hose. If it does, it's not the end of the world. Just try to keep it from happening. Switch right there. And that's the reason we're wanting to change these. They're getting pretty thin. Again, make sure you get this hardware, these sliders, with your new brake pads. So we're going to do the same thing here. When you're squeezing this in, you want to make sure that it's not, you're not fighting it. It should go in pretty smooth. Seal all looks good, no rips or tears. Got these pads on the wrong side. That one goes there. And that one should go there. So now it probably works. Oh yeah, just like it was made to go there. Just goes to show, if you're having problems getting something together, stop and kind of check it out and make sure that you got everything where it's supposed to be going. Alright, so we're good, we're buttoned up and getting on the other side. Okay, so you can kind of see where we ended up fluid level wise, right at the maximum. I'm going to pump the brake a few times and, you know, take out the slack in them calipers. We might have to add a little bit. Otherwise, if it stays right there, we're just going to leave it alone. All right, we got the brake pedal pumped back up. We're going to add just a little. And we'll call that good. Oh yeah. This is what would have spilled out of here when we started doing that brake job if we wouldn't have sucked it out first. Okay, so we're back from our test drive and break in. And basically, we're just gonna touch and make sure nothing is unusually hot. Brakes are normally hot after they've been worked pretty hard. It takes quite a bit of friction to slow a few thousand pounds down. But what we're feeling for is something that's way hotter than any of the others. They all feel about the same. I'll put the instructions I use for break-ins up right here. So while we're breaking in, there was no unusual noises. Everything stops great. Obviously no smoke and fire and stuff. I highly recommend anytime you're doing any kind of work on a vehicle or a boat, do a test drive. You've got to trust your own work. So take it for a quick spin, make sure everything works. Anyway, that's gonna finish up this little job. Thanks for watching. We'll have the bonehead move on my part.